to resettle somewhere else. My understanding of it is it's just like, to put it in simple terms, it's a giant vacuum cleaner, and they're essentially going along and vacuuming it. But then again, what are you going to do with this stuff? Where are you going to put it? And my answer to that is find the CEOs of General Electric when this was going on and stick it in their backyards if you really want to know.
Well, what about their neighbors?
I'm for dredging. I'm exactly. What about their neighbors? But this is a question that I don't have an answer to. What are we going to do with it once we take it out of the Hudson River? Where are we going to put it? Maybe you folks have some ideas. You should be participating. I don't know where you're going to put it, but I tell you one thing. I sure as heck don't like having it on the bottom of the Hudson River. I'd rather see it someplace else. I'm sure there are plenty of mine shafts in upstate New York where they're burying nuclear waste. Maybe we could put it there. And again, I'm in agreement with Michael that we got to shut down this Indian Point nuclear power plant, and that's a top priority. Radiation knows no county borders or political parties. This needs to be shut down.
I support dredging as well. But remember, this is a good example of what we were talking about a minute ago. People support dredging because of what PCBs do to the river. But now you've dredged. Now you have a truck. You have a truck with the excess of the vacuumed material. It's PCB tainted. It's infected by PCB. You put it on a truck, and the truck goes from wherever you are on the banks of the Hudson River to wherever these places upstate are. And as it goes, it leaks the PCBs. So is that a perfect solution? I mean, your students, one of the things that I think is very important to recognize is not everything is black and white. Not everything is yes or no. There are risks associated with dredging. One of the risks associated with dredging is what do you do with the dredged materials? Where do we put it? The reason people on the other side of the Hudson River, where we're supposed to be putting the dredged material, are going crazy, they don't want dredging, is not because they like PCBs in the Hudson River. Nobody likes them. Who could like them? It's because they're thinking to themselves that the residue, the effects of the dredging, are going to be visited on them. They don't want them spread all over their community. Now, see, we demonize them. We say, well, how can you be against dredging? They can be against dredging for that reason. Keep it at the bottom of a river rather than on my front lawn. So issues of public policy are not black and white. It's not yes or no. This is horrible, that's not horrible.
It's not supposed to be black and white, but I think life is just precious. And to say, you're going to kill life, to me, that's just a shame.
Should we dredge? Should we dredge the river?
I'm not even on that issue.
Okay.
Could I follow up on that?
I'm just saying, when you're going back, I think life should hold a higher power than everything else.
I agree.
Yeah. And
again, I believe General Electric has to be held accountable. And the reason there's so much sentiment against dredging is because General Electric, one of the world's richest multinational corporations, is because they're throwing all of their advertising dollars into all of the television stations and newspapers and magazines all in this area. So if you really, the concern about dredging has been inflated because of the giant money coffers that General Electric has as a resource.
People are genuinely concerned, Don.
People are generally concerned, yes they are, but General Electric is employing scare tactics to save their own behinds, so they don't have to clean up after themselves. If they had spent all the money that they've spent on advertising trying to convince everybody that they shouldn't have to clean up after themselves, that we should have to clean up after them, if they used that money to clean up this mess, then it probably would have been cleaned up by now. So again, here's just another example of corporations trying to get away with literally murder and expecting us, the tax-paying people, to come along and flip the bill and pay for it. If somebody makes a mess, why should somebody else have to clean it up?
With 15 minutes left, I'd like to move to the next topic. Kyle?
I know you guys are both anti-sprawl, but other people in other counties have also said they're anti-sprawl. I'm looking at now. Look at Rockland County. What are you gonna really do about it?
Again, it's funny Ed Diana isn't here because I know his campaign is being financed by a lot of wealthy real estate developers who will take a family farm that could be saved if it weren't for the Democratic and Republican parties in this country, in my opinion, could be saved, and they're buying these family farms and carving them up into little quarter-acre and eighth-acre lots in these little enclaves right next to highways and stuff. So I think It's more of a matter of real estate developers and local municipalities being responsible about development. You could develop, you could have good development, desirable, aesthetically pleasing, humane, environmentally friendly development, but you got to be responsible about it. And unfortunately, development is all about getting in, throwing up what you can, and getting out of there as fast as you can. And I think that fundamentally has to change. And I think county government is in a position where they could influence that kind of positive change.
Yeah, specifically, these are the things you can do about sprawl. Number one, you have to have something called PDR, Purchase of Development Rights, county-wide. The reason for that is that the biggest engine of sprawl in our county is that farmers who own much of the land that's being developed or overdeveloped are unable in this county to make a good living. One of the major reasons they're unable to make a good living is even though their costs of production are low, there are middle people, brokers, in the food distribution process. The food distribution process is such that whatever advantage those local farmers have is taken away in profits that they make. What we need to do is we have to give the farmers who are here an idea that they will get money, capital, liquidity now, so they don't have to sell out their farms to the developers Don is speaking about. We also have to set up in each of our communities a place where our local farmers can directly sell their produce year-round. Refrigeration technology is good enough now that these farmers can produce their goods in their growing season and have them available either fresh or pretty near fresh year-round. We don't have those places for them to sell directly. If we had those places for them to sell directly, our farm community would be boosted, and that would set up a great block against sprawl. The other thing we have to do is very simple. We have the authority as a county to review through the State Environmental Quality Review Act. That's SEQRA. Those of you who don't know it should know what that is. State Environmental Quality Review Act. We have the authority at the county level through the county planning department and the county health department to review every single proposal and to give feedback to community groups that are in their own localities fighting those proposals. So rather than going to bake sales and raffles to raise $10,000 to hire a lawyer or an engineer to get information to resist sprawl, those community groups should have the information from our own county planning and health departments, which will arm them with the ammunition they need to resist sprawl before their own planning boards and zoning boards. If we do those things, we will make a big dent in sprawl.
Any other questions?
Can I just follow up with that real quick?
Sure.
The problem I have with PDR is that it benefits rich people but kind of leaves everybody else behind. I think PDR would be good if it were equitable, if it would benefit everybody equally, and I think PDR does not, in its present state, doesn't address that.
I still hear that. Brian again?
In the back.
What my total taxes that they give, they go to the school's taxes. Why are they going to different towns and not to Midtown, which is in Orange County?
Okay, I think the question, we discussed this in class yesterday, was the taxes that go to the Galleria all go to the cities, go to the towns of Pine Bush, Valley Central, and Goshen, and none of those go to Middletown, although the Galleria is practically in our backyard. Those taxes are go into those school districts, and therefore Pine Bush, Valley Central, and Goshen have higher test scores. What would you do to solve that problem if there's not enough money being raised in Middletown for the Middletown School District? Amanda?
Yeah, stop corporate welfare. You know, the Galleria Mall comes in and they get all these big favors from the town of Walk-Hill, and they don't have to pay taxes for like 15 years. But all the local folks who are just struggling with 3 and 4 minimum wage jobs that are created by that monstrosity, you know, they have to pay more taxes than the Galleria Mall does. Probably your parents pay more taxes than the Galleria Mall does. So there's we could take, instead of taking that money and just handing it over to corporations like Pyramid Mall Incorporated and just giving that money away, to build something as awful as that just depletes all of the spirit out of every downtown for miles all over the county. I mean, think about the impact that malls have had on every downtown in this county. Why are we giving them money to destroy our downtowns and our inner cities? Why are we doing this? In my opinion, we should be giving that money instead of private interests and multinational corporations. We should give that money to education. And we should have universities in this county. You're asking about creating stuff to do in this county. The best thing for the economy, for for the people in this county, for recreation, universities. Go to any university town and check out how cool it is. And then imagine having a university or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 in this county. Imagine turning Orange County into, say, Boston, a university county.
Now, let me try to answer your question, young man. The basic problem we have is this. When sales tax revenues come into Orange County, they come into the county. The county has what's called an agreement with all the localities, which was passed by our county legislature, which distributes the sales tax revenues to each community and each city. I view that agreement as something we have to revisit. We have to go back over. The reason for that is that the communities which have been negatively affected, and I think Dawn's right about this, the malls have a terrible effect on downtowns. The communities which have been very much affected by that have to get some more of the share of the monies. They don't get that right now. The cities are getting too little of the share of the sales tax revenues. Newburgh is getting too little, so is Middletown, so is Port Jervis, and they've all been negatively affected by the movement of shops and stores outside. In Port Jervis today, if you go on Pike Street and Front Street, which are two of their major streets, there's about a 70% rate of stores that are not being rented. If you go on North Street in Middletown, you have the same thing. Most of the shops either have nothing in them or have something in them that's not even paying taxes. The reason for that is because of the malls which have developed. The fact is the malls are there now. So the only thing we can do right now to help the communities is to give them a bigger share of that tax revenue to help them rebuild.
Okay, there was a question in the back for Guy. Did you have a question?
Why do you think usually county executives
Well, we come from completely different philosophies, I think. I don't know. In my opinion, the Green Party is what the Democratic Party should be. And I think the reason the Green Party exists is because the Democratic Party has failed to do what everybody thought they were going to do, you know, save the world and all of these progressive things. Look, I love the Democratic Party in the 1960s and the 1970s and stuff, but as of the 1980s, they just started moving way far to the center or even right of center, in my opinion. If you turn on Crossfire and they have a Democrat and a Republican on there, in my opinion, that's nothing more than the right debating the extreme right. So I just, you know, Michael's a great guy. He really is, you know, and if you're not going to vote for me, vote for Michael, and don't vote for that Ed Diana guy, because he's just going to screw everything up. But you know, we just have fundamental differences, and we happen to disagree with regard to approach. And I just don't feel that the Democratic Party represents the issues that I champion, that are important to me. And by virtue of Michael's association with the Democratic Party, I just don't feel that he represents the issues that I feel really need to be addressed in a comprehensive, expedient manner in this county. I just don't see it happening.
Well, let me say something about that. I don't know how many of you are voters, but when you vote in an election, this is the situation you face. Third-party candidacies are healthy. Don's candidacy is healthy in this county. The problem you have is we've had one-party rule in Orange County for 30 years. The Republican parties have been in control of the county for 30 years. They have not done well, in my opinion. They've goofed up most of the major capital projects, whether it was the landfill expansion or the jail or the courthouse. We need to get that party out of power in Orange County. Every single vote cast for Don, and I'm not sure how many he's going to get, but every single vote cast for Don helps Eddie Diana to become county executive. It's that simple. Because the people, excuse me, the people who Don is appealing to are progressive people in the county. My record in the county is as the most progressive lawyer in the county. I've been a civil rights lawyer for 23 years. I've been an environmental lawyer, a labor lawyer. I've been fighting all the battles that Don's talking about. The problem is, if you vote for a fringe party which has no chance of winning, what you're doing is you're taking away the Democratic Party's chance of really bringing change in the county. It's that simple.
I have to
We have
respond to
less
that.
than
That's
5
just not.
minutes left,
That's
and I'd
just
like
not
to
true.
hear a closing argument
Sure.
from both of you, since you seem very eager to
Okay,
speak.
look, there's no such thing as a wasted vote. The best thing anybody could do is vote their conscience, because at least you could get up the next morning and look yourself in the mirror and not have to face these people who have just been wrecking the whole world for the last, you know, since we've been born. And you don't have to get up the next morning and look at them on television. At least you can get up and look yourself in the mirror and say, look, you know, I did the right thing. I tried to make a difference. And, you know, quite frankly, the Democratic and Republican parties, there's really no difference in terms of the death penalty, in terms of the drug war, in terms of corporate welfare, in terms of homogenization of America, and the consolidation of businesses that, you know, like the Gap and Old Navy and all the stores that you see over at the Galleria Mall that are putting little mom and pop businesses out of business. And the reason why you probably want to leave Orange County, because when you graduate high school or college or whatever, to try to open a small business in this county, trying to compete with the likes of the Galleria Mall and Media Play and all these people, you know, of course you're going to want to leave, because unless you're working for a multinational corporation in this county and you're bringing home barely a minimum wage, then you're probably not going to get a job in this county. So my advice to you is always vote your conscience. You're not going to, it's not a wasted vote. Your vote is never wasted. If anything, the more people that vote for a Green Party candidate, the further back to the left where the Democrats belong, they'll be drawn further to the left where they belong. It'll teach them a lesson.
2 minutes for
Thank
Mr.
you.
Sussman to speak, but we'd like to thank Mr. Hickok as well. 2 more minutes.
First of all, let me thank you all for being here, and I hope that you, in fact, are going to take an interest in the political process. The greatest enemy that your generation has is the same enemy my generation had, and I was in high school 30 years ago, which is apathy. Apathy. People are not involved in the political process. The only thing people care about is something that directly affects them, whether it be Masada in my backyard, and then everybody gets up in arms, or Calpine in Wawayanda, or a project right in your backyard. What you have to do is study public policy sufficiently to come to reasoned conclusions about what's good, what's bad, what needs doing in our country. And I hope that you'll be all more polite than my opponents here today, and not get up during the middle of when someone else is speaking. I hope that you will all take the time and energy, or make faces, take the time and energy to study the issues in a serious way and participate. That's the biggest message I have for you today. Don't let other people control your lives. And the only way to change that is for each of you to be involved. Study the issues, make a contribution, speak out. If you don't do that, and all you do in the end of the day is complain about how government's not doing something for you, you're not doing it for yourselves. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Yeah. And if anybody